They say the dead tell no tales, but some refuse to stay silent. This is the story of Anne Boleyn, the most infamous queen in English history. A woman who rose like fire and fell like thunder, betrayed, beheaded, and buried in an unmarked grave. But centuries later, she still haunts us. Not just in ghost stories, but in the way history was rewritten to forget her. Until now, this is not a fairy tale. This is a warning. She was never supposed to be queen. Anne Boleyn was clever, confident, and dangerously educated for a woman in the 1500s. Born into a noble family, she was sent to the courts of Europe as a young girl. There, she learned more than embroidery and courtly manners. She learned how power moved. When she returned to England, she caught the eye of a man who already had a wife. Henry had never been told no. Until Anne. She refused to be his mistress, said she would only be his wife. Henry, used to getting what he wanted, became obsessed. What followed was a series of choices that would change history. He broke from the Catholic Church. He defied the Pope. And he married Anne Boleyn. All for love, or was it power? Imagine standing in a palace, surrounded by whispers. Not the usual court gossip, but dangerous whispers. The kind that twists smiles into sneers and rumors into ruin. The year is 1533, and Anne Boleyn, now Queen of England, is about to learn that wearing the crown doesn't mean you've won. Because here's the thing, Anne didn't just win Henry's heart, she rewrote the rules of religion, marriage, and monarchy. But in doing so, she made enemies, powerful ones. And the higher you rise in the Tudor court, the harder and bloodier you fall. June 1st, 1533. Anne Boleyn's coronation is unlike anything London has seen. Instead of the traditional ceremony for Queen's consort, Henry insists she be crowned with the St. Edward's crown, a crown reserved for reigning monarchs. The message? She's not just a queen, she's the queen. The city is decorated with Tudor roses and gold tapestries. Trumpets blare, and processes through the streets in a golden litter beneath a canopy of cloth of gold, while thousands cheer, or pretend to, because while some bow, others seethe, and is not beloved. Many still see her as the woman who tore Queen Catherine from her rightful throne. And worse, she's blamed for England's break from Rome. But Anne? She's radiant. 6 months pregnant, she knows the stakes. If this child is a boy, her position is secure. If not, everything is at risk. September 7th, 1533. After a long labor at Greenwich Palace, and gives birth, not to a son, but a daughter, Elizabeth. The disappointment is sharp. Henry masks it publicly, but privately, the whispers begin, and assures him, next time it will be a boy. Henry smiles, but something has already shifted. Still, Elizabeth is celebrated. A grand christening at the Church of Observant Friars is held. Anne stands proudly, but beneath the surface, pressure mounts. The Tudor dynasty needs a male heir. Anne Boleyn had climbed higher than anyone expected, but the thing about power is it rarely forgives ambition. And in the spring of 1536, and Queen of England, mother of the future, breaker of Rome, was about to become its most tragic ghost. The walls of the Tudor court had ears, sharp, hungry ears. And Anne's enemies? They had been waiting for years and had made powerful foes. The old noble families, the Spanish alliance loyal to Catherine, the conservative clergy, even Henry's own advisors, like Thomas Cromwell, were watching. And now, Henry was beginning to turn, and had not given him a son. That failure wasn't just personal, it was political. The Tudor dynasty was still young, and without a male heir, England was vulnerable. And Henry? He had started looking elsewhere. One lady-in-waiting in particular caught his eye, Jane Seymour. April 30th, 1536. a musician named Mark Smeaton, one of Anne's favorites, was arrested and tortured. The charges? Adultery with the Queen. Smeaton confessed, but what he confessed to made no sense. Soon after, more names followed: Sir Henry Norris, Sir Francis Weston, William Brereton, and even Anne's own brother, George Boleyn. One by one, they were rounded up, charged with treasonous adultery and plotting the king's death. There was no solid proof, no witnesses, just confessions under duress and the mounting silence of a court that no longer dared speak Anne's name aloud. On May 2nd, Anne herself was arrested during a tournament. She was taken to the Tower of London by barge, the same place she'd once stayed before her coronation. Only this time, she wasn't coming as queen. Anne's trial was a show, more theater than justice. Presided over by her uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, the jury was packed with her enemies. She was accused of having affairs with 5 men, including her brother, of laughing at the king, of plotting his death, and denied everything.
Calm.
Dignified.
Brilliant.
But it didn't matter. The verdict?
Guilty.
The sentence? Death by burning commuted to beheading. Even in the end, Henry gave Anne a twisted kind of mercy. He brought in a French executioner with a sword, rather than the English axe. Faster, cleaner, less messy, at least on the outside. It was a Thursday, and for Anne Boleyn, the queen who once ruled the king's heart, it would be her last. They had changed the date.
Twice.
Kept her waiting. Tortured her, not with blades, but with silence. And now it was time. At 5 a.m., and Boleyn was already awake. Not from noise, there wasn't any, but from memory. She had been Queen of England. She had danced at court, laughed with her daughter, stood beside a king. And now she was a prisoner. The Tower of London was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Her ladies wept. She did not. Instead, she spoke to God, asking for grace, asking, not for life, but for strength to die with dignity. She knew what was coming. Just outside her cell, footsteps echoed. A man approached. It was Sir William Kingston, the constable of the Tower. He had come with a message. The execution would take place at 8 a.m. and gave him a sad smile. "I am ready," she said. Henry VIII had made a peculiar request. He didn't want a botched execution. No clumsy acts. No mess. So he sent for the best. From Calais, France, a master swordsman. This man didn't know the politics. He was simply efficient. And Anne, strangely, was relieved.
She even said so.
"I have heard," she whispered, "that he is very gentle, and I have but a little neck." She laughed after saying it, her gallows humor echoing through the stone. That moment, the laugh was Anne, still brave, still dignified, still herself. At 7:55 a.m., the doors opened, and stepped out, dressed in a dark gray gown lined with crimson, her hair pinned back, a cloak draped over her shoulders. She looked royal. As she approached the scaffold, people held their breath and turned to her audience.
Her voice was calm, clear, poised.
"Good Christian people, I have not come here to accuse any man, nor to speak of that whereof I am accused and condemned to die. But I pray God save the king and send him long reign over you." There was no bitterness, no name-calling, not a trace of vengeance, just a farewell, wrapped in grace. Anne removed her hood, then her jewelry. Then she knelt on the straw-covered scaffold. She began to pray aloud. "To Jesus Christ I commend my soul. Lord Jesus, receive my soul. O Lord God, have pity on my soul." She repeated this again and again as the swordsman quietly moved into place behind her. And then silence. He raised the blade. But instead of striking, he shouted to his assistant for his sword and turned instinctively. And in that split second, the sword flashed. It was over. One perfect strike. No scream. No struggle. Just a clean fall. Anne Boleyn, the queen who broke the church, was dead and was buried in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. No royal ceremony. No marble tomb. No monument. Just silence. Henry didn't attend. He was 25 miles away, already planning a wedding with Jane Seymour.
Yes.
The next queen, in less than 24 hours, and had been erased, but not forgotten. History tried to write her off as a seductress, a traitor,
A witch.
but beneath the rumors and betrayal was a woman who changed the world. She gave birth to Elizabeth, the greatest monarch England ever knew. She split the church in two, and she died with more grace than those who condemned her. Anne Boleyn fell, but her story never did. When the sword finally fell on May 19th, 1536, the winds of history did not stop. The crowds dispersed. The court moved on. But something in England shifted forever. Anne Boleyn, a queen who had once captivated the King of England, now lay buried beneath the stones of the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. No funeral procession, no royal honors, just silence and a memory that would haunt generations. Her brother George, along with the other accused men, had all been executed just days before her. The Boleyn family, once the meteoric darlings of the Tudor court, were now tarnished, their names synonymous with treason and scandal. Her daughter, Elizabeth, was just 2.5 years old, now declared illegitimate. Her mother was dead. Her father, Thomas Boleyn, faded into quiet disgrace. But here's the twist. The story didn't end with Anne's death, because Anne, though stripped of her crown, her title, and her dignity, left behind a legacy that refused to die. You see, 8 years after Anne's execution, the wheel of fate turned. Henry VIII's sixth wife, Catherine Parr, convinced him to reinstate both of his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, back into the line of succession. Then, in 1558, Henry's only legitimate son, Edward VI, died young. His successor, Queen Mary, reigned briefly, and then, against all odds, Elizabeth, Anne's daughter, became Queen of England. Elizabeth I, daughter of a beheaded queen, born in scandal, surrounded by enemies, became one of the most iconic monarchs in world history. Under her, England saw a golden age of culture, expansion, and identity. The Elizabethan era, Shakespeare, the defeat of the Spanish Armada, and a fierce, independent queen who never married, ruling alone for 44 years. And Boleyn didn't just alter the course of her own life. She altered the course of an empire. The English Reformation, Henry's break with Rome, started for her. Thousands would die in the conflict that followed. Monasteries would fall. A pope would be defied. And a nation would be reborn under Protestantism. And Boleyn was never the passive, meek consort history once painted her to be. She was brilliant, fiery, political, and dangerous. Not because she was evil, but because she wanted something more than the world allowed women to want. Imagine this. A woman who rose from lady-in-waiting to queen, changed the religion of an entire country, gave birth to England's greatest monarch, and died alone on a cold May morning. Her final words? Forgiveness.
Dignity. Grace.
And today, 500 years later, we still say her name, Anne Boleyn. Thanks for watching. If you liked this story, don't forget to subscribe. Because in history, it's never just about what happened, it's about why it happened, and who paid the price.